Hello, my name is Andy Klump, and I'm the founder and CEO of Clean Energy Associates. I'm very happy to talk with you today about the topic of energy decarbonization and what this means in the renewable energy sector. So I would like to first talk a little bit about decarbonization, why this is an important issue, renewable energy as a potential solution, and also give you a little bit of a background on Clean Energy Associates and some of the work that we do. So first of all, we all understand the importance of climate change and the need for us as a society to decarbonize around the world. If we look at the core reasons for decarbonization demand, there are 5 core reasons that decarbonization is a problem and a need today in modern society. First of all, transportation is by far the largest emitter of carbon dioxide. The second is energy, and I will talk in more detail about solutions for that. The third is industrial consumption of energy and the carbon that's emitted. The fourth category is buildings, which can be addressed with energy efficiency and electrification and the smart grid. And the final category is really agriculture, food and land use. But I will focus on the energy sector, as this is by far the area that we have an influence, and we work with many leading companies globally that care about this topic. So if we back up 200 years ago, we can see what were the sources of energy. And obviously the largest consumer or the largest emitter of CO2 was actually traditional biomass, so the burning of wood. And then maintained the largest use of energy until coal was discovered in the late 1800s. And as coal started to grow and expand in the 1900s, we then saw an expansion into oil. And with the boom in the 1920s, oil became a primary source of energy. And it wasn't really until later that we saw gas, nuclear, and then some other forms of renewables start to expand. So I have added this additional slide. We can kind of see the mix of ongoing other sources of energy beyond oil and coal and gas. But the reality is that the bulk of energy today is still emitting a tremendous amount of CO2 into the atmosphere. And this is a major concern for us as humanity. I present this slide as the source of CO2 emissions and intensity is increasing and has historically been increasing throughout the years, the last decade or so. However, we've seen a small drop around 2020 that was namely driven by a lower energy consumption, lower demand due to COVID. And we saw a drop in both oil, coal, and natural gas, but that was just a temporary phenomenon. Since 2020, we've seen oil rebound in terms of demand, but coal actually has started a decline prior to COVID and is on an ongoing long-scale decline and will be a less reliant source of energy in the future. But the key trend line to observe is the renewable energy growth, as you see in green. We're very excited to see that renewables actually has grown as a percentage share, and that trend is something that we expect to continue to intensify. Renewable energy sources such as wind and solar and hydro do form a dramatic change in how CO2 emissions are released into the atmosphere, as they are not emitting carbon dioxide. So if you look at the small dotted blue line at the top, one can see that we are in a decline about carbon dioxide intensity for overall total energy supply. However, this is conditional on us increasing renewables and also finding ways to reduce the footprint of oil, coal, and natural gas. And unfortunately, oil and natural gas are still in an increasing demand state right now, and this is something we have to be aware of. But the projection by 2050 is that over 90% of the global electricity generation will come from renewable sources, And of that, solar and wind together will be roughly 70%. So if one looks at the global energy consumption in 2020, once again, renewables was still a small fraction, roughly 12.5%, with oil, natural gas, and coal being the dominant forms. But within renewable energy, there has been a massive portion of that which is driven by hydro. And unfortunately, hydro is difficult to expand in large scale volumes. But what will happen over time is that solar and wind will continue to proliferate and grow quite dramatically. And I will talk through that trend here shortly. One of the other important pieces to study is the fact that carbon dioxide emissions on a per capita basis are quite different from country to country. And unfortunately, developed countries of Saudi Arabia, Australia, the United States, and Canada are the highest emitters of carbon dioxide on a per person basis. I myself, as an American, I'm very sorry to hear this phenomenon because the US cannot continue to emit carbon dioxide with the level of intensity that Americans have been. I've actually been living and working in China for the last 19 years, so I'm a little ashamed to see this trend take place. But I think it's alarming because there are many other emerging markets that are expanding, and many others want to consume more product and more goods that could potentially lead to a higher carbon dioxide emissions on a per capita basis. China is much more efficient than any of the countries you see on the left, including Germany. But we also see India on the far right. Once again, the population of both India and China are much larger than the US. If the population of both those countries were to emit on a per capita basis as much as of what Americans do, that would be a disaster for our global warming crisis. So one of the core trends that we need to discuss is how to emit less or emit a smaller amount of carbon dioxide and ensure that we are efficient in how we produce our energy. The good news is we see a massive growth potential of renewable energy. This chart highlights the rapid growth of solar PV for the next several decades and the next century to come. And I remain extremely bullish on the solar energy sector as costs have come down quite dramatically, which I'll explain shortly. And I also see there's a lot of growth potential on other renewable sources, such as wind. And once again, the ongoing decline of coal, oil, and natural gas are expected in the future. So this is also important to see as a very realistic outcome. So once again, I've been working and living in China for the last 19 years, but the last 16 years, I've been exclusively focused on solar PV and energy storage. So I'd like to talk about how renewable energy growth is a solution. And this is where the data is very clear. China is a leader globally in both installation of solar energy as well as the end manufacturing. I first want to highlight, if you look at the top 10 PV installations worldwide, both on a cumulative basis on the left, as well as the 2021 data on the right, China has a commanding lead over the US and many other markets. On a cumulative basis, Japan, Germany, and India also follow the US, and we expect to see more Western countries migrating to the deployment of solar energy because solar has become much more cost effective. If we look at the actual cumulative installations by country, once again, we see the data very clearly that China is the top player globally, but we also acknowledge that solar installations are growing quite dramatically in many regions around the world, including Europe, Asia Pacific, India as well. So once again, the overall growth on a regional basis still highlights China and India as global leaders. The US is still catching up as well. But once again, China, the United States, and India are the top three markets in that order. If we look at the manufacturing side, this is where China once again dominates and is leading the trend by ensuring that there is a strong manufacturing base for renewable energy. Wind turbines are roughly 50% manufactured in China, We see solar modules at roughly 66%. There are other parts of the solar value chain, such as polysilicon or ingoting, which are over 90%. And then finally, on storage or battery cells, we actually see over 90% of the world's manufacturing happens in China. So most of the battery storage manufacturing facilities are geared towards the electric vehicle market. I know there are other presentations in this series that will address that, but we also remain focused not just on solar, but also energy storage, and we look after that market quite closely. One of the key dynamics that I want to highlight is the notion of grid parity. What this graph highlights is how much the cost of solar PV has dropped quite dramatically. And looking from the start of the graph on the left side, solar cost on a per watt basis and on a megawatt hour basis have dropped by over 90% over the last 15 years. I've been working in the solar PV industry since 2006 when I worked at Trina Solar as the Vice President of Business Development and helped list the company on the New York Stock Exchange. And I saw the company grow 10x in those 2 years, but I literally have seen the solar market grow from 1.6 gigawatts to over 160 gigawatts last year. So literally a 100x growth in a 16-year period of time. And what has happened as the industry has scaled, the costs have come down quite dramatically. And we now see that solar PV is less costly compared to other traditional sources of energy. And this is where the market will continue to grow and expand dramatically because solar is more cost effective. Economics rules the day. This is what allows solar to continue to grow and expand aggressively and displace more traditional sources of energy, is because project financiers and others involved in this sector want to see higher returns. They obtain better returns by investing in solar PV than they do in traditional sources of energy. I show that same graph again. The cost decline is what allows the market to grow. This is not a market that requires subsidies. This can exist head-to-head against traditional sources of energy on an unsubsidized basis. That's what makes this long-term trend viable. So to continue to summarize this key focus of this presentation, I want to highlight there are a number of milestones in the path to obtain net zero, and we have to work towards a state of decarbonization. There are numerous areas of the solution, and this is something that we are focused at CEA on the renewable energy aspect. But once again, we want to continue to drive towards universal energy access for everyone. All buildings need to continue to move towards a direction of zero carbon basis. We need to see that global car sales all become electric, and including heavy trucks and other forms of transportation. Clean technologies must be deployed in heavy industry at scale, and we need to see more and more wind and solar installations that go global. By shifting the overall transportation sector from the internal combustion engine to electric vehicles, that is a portion of the solution. By shifting all of the agricultural use to more cost-effective ways, and also by reducing energy usage and energy efficiency methods, we can see a massive shift. So I remain very bullish. Looking out several decades, we can achieve net zero if we all work together and we continue to champion resources towards that overall objective to fight climate change. So to talk a little bit about CEA, I'd like to highlight that we have a track record over the last 14 years of completing over 125 gigawatts of projects on solar PV and over 8 gigawatt hours on energy storage. Our teams have over 175 professionals in 13 countries, most of which are engineers, and we've executed projects or had clients in 65 countries globally. So we are a global player who's actively involved in expanding the sector. The product focus we have ranges from just the downstream solar modules to the other balance of system components such as inverters, racking, transformers, but we also cover the whole end-to-end system of battery storage systems from the cell, module, inverter, all the way to the HVAC and racking. We continue to focus throughout the entire value chain, and that's why we're seen as the leader globally in technical advisory services, of course, across these 4 dimensions of quality assurance, supply chain management, engineering services, and market intelligence. And we also have a complete offering for corporate clients and provide support in the area of ESG. CA works with 2 of the top 10 Fortune 10 companies, and we have a very large presence with our clients have over $5 trillion worth of market capitalization. Market intelligence gives our clients unique insights into all facets of the supply chain and allows them to make decisions in a cost-effective basis. And this is where we are very unique, is that our teams are located in 13 countries and gain insights from all over the world. And this is what allows our business to succeed and be strong in many fronts. So at CEA, we also care very much about decarbonization, and this is why we measure what we provide on a day in, day out basis. So we believe that by helping our clients and stakeholders deploy solar and storage solutions worldwide, we are creating a better future. And this is why we measure our CO2 footprint. So decarbonization is absolutely crucial to what we do on a day in, day out basis. We've cumulatively supported over 2 billion trees being planted, removing over 27 million passenger combustion engines off the road, and powering over 17 million homes in the US per year. So these are the metrics of how we measure our success. And this is why culture matters most to us at CEA. I've successfully grown and expanded the business over the last 14 years because of the efforts of having a fantastic team. And I'm very excited to share with you some of these insights. And I hope that all of you continue to move the industry forward. So once again, please support CEA as we continue to grow and expand in the renewable energy sector. And please continue to pay attention to the other great speakers in this conference who are supporting the trends of decarbonization. So with that, I'd like to thank you very much for your time. Have a great day, and I look forward to staying in touch. If you would like to reach me, you can reach CEA at info@cea3.com, or you can reach me at aclump@cea3.com, or better yet, you can connect with me via LinkedIn or on WeChat, just aclump. Thank you very much and have a great day.